Here we are with another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics. I'm really excited about this one today. It's a gentleman I've known for over a decade that's working to serve the community here. He's constantly trying to solve a very complex, very difficult problem. So I'm joined today by Josh Parish of Vetlife. For the people that don't know you in the community, Josh, talk a little bit about your background personally. You know, did you grow up here in Michigan, and how you got to the point of starting Vetlife?
Sure, yeah. No. Well, first off, I appreciate you having me. I'm glad to be here. So I originally grew up in the Upper Peninsula, a little Indian reservation called Bay Mills, population of about 1,200. And so where I grew up, you kind of had a few choices. You could either work at the casino or work at the local prison. And I didn't want to do either one of those. I knew from an early age. So after high school, I went to college for a little bit. Unfortunately, was not ready for college, so I failed out. And then I joined the military. So after the military, I was in for about 8 years in Iraq, in the initial invasion of Iraq. And after I got out, I started looking for my benefits because, you know, everybody tells you when you get into the military, like, oh, they'll take good care of you, you know, that you'll get enrolled in health care and they'll help you out with education benefits and home loan benefits, disability if you get hurt overseas. And when I got out, I must have struggled for about 3 years trying to find benefits, and really opened my eyes to see how the lack of the benefits were there, but finding them was very difficult. So really, that's my story. We moved down here in about 2011, my wife and I, and really that's where I met you.
Why do you think it's so difficult to find something as simple as benefits from a military? Because from a civilian perspective, I would think it would be effortless. You know what I mean? Like, I actually almost joined the military. I almost went into the Marines at one point when I was younger. I elected not to. I chose a different route. But from the outside perspective, I wouldn't even fathom that this is an issue, because I would think that it's a very straightforward process because the military is so structured. Generally speaking, I mean, you went from a lifestyle where every single thing had structure and had purpose and had reason and had order. So all of a sudden you leave that unit and now you're searching for something as basic as a benefit to make sure that your quality of life is okay while you make the transition back to being a civilian. And now it's not. Why is that an issue? And with that being said, what are the steps to start remedying this? Because without you speaking about this to me previously, it just wouldn't cross my mind. I don't hear it reported about. I don't really hear people talking about it too much. I know that like veteran suicides and things are a massive issue, which I think we should get into.
Yeah.
But why is it just not a simple process?
So here's my take on it. So I'll start from more of kind of a micro level. Let's take Michigan, for example. So Michigan has, on average, around 650,000 veterans. Now, less than 15% of that population have ever accessed a federal benefit. Here's where I think the breakdown in communication is somewhat twofold. So let's say hypothetically that you're transitioning out of military service, Fort Hood, Texas, but you're going back to Michigan, which is where you grew up. You're going from a federal kind of branch of service back to state. Now, if you don't bring your records with you, they go to some central clearinghouse, I believe, in Missouri, which is called, it's an archive, where everybody that gets out of the service, where their records go. So your discharge papers, your DD-214, you need that wherever you go, because that is kind of like your Bible or your birth certificate. It tells you where you were, who you are, how long you were in, if you got honorably discharged or dishonorably discharged. So, like I said, so you go from Texas to Michigan, and you go from a federal to state, and you'd think that you'd be able to access these benefits. But where the breakdown is the federal government doesn't really know what the state of Michigan is doing for what we call veteran service provision. And traditionally, the state of Michigan, which has the 11th highest veteran population in the country, is in the bottom 5 of states that provides benefits for veterans. Now, Why is that? I don't know. I don't really know, but I do know that we have services for veterans at a county level. We're just not very good at letting people know. Let's take Livingston County, for example. We have 11,000 veterans in Livingston County alone. But in 2019, the local county VA office only saw around 900 veterans and dependents.
Wow. So you're talking about around 9% of the people are actually going and seeking out help.
Yeah.
And then the 15%, that's around 100,000. I had no idea 650,000 veterans in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable, man. So now all of a sudden, when you said that number, my brain started to go, whoa, I can kind of see how this could get difficult. I mean, look at the unemployment situation that we had happen when all these people started applying for unemployment. When you have a quantity that large and you have a system that really needs to be precise with tracking and papers and make sure there's not fraud and things like that, it is definitely a certain, dynamic process, but shouldn't it be top tier priority? I mean, you're talking about these are the people that went and serve the country with promise of, hey, if you do these things, we are going to make sure that we help you with your transition back. One thing that I want to ask that I've always been curious about with military is, why do you think the transition back is so incredibly difficult? Because from the outside perspective, it seems like when people go into the military, they level up a lot as a human being. They learn discipline, they learn character, they learn work ethic, they learn being a part of a team, they learn leadership, they learn a lot of qualities, perseverance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you would think that they'd be coming back like these leveled up human beings that almost have a one-up on society. Because, in that 4 years that you were in the military, I could have been sitting at home playing World of Warcraft. But there is a very difficult transition back. Why do you think that is?
Well, there is, and I'm glad you brought that up. So the military, by nature, is very structured. They want you to follow orders, do as you're told, and really don't ask questions. So when you get out of the military, you would think that they would set you up. You would think that the military would set you up for all the tools that you need to be successful. But unfortunately, that's not the case. From what I've seen with my background working with veterans for about the last 10 or 12 years, on every level of government. So I've worked for the federal government, I've worked for the state government, and I've worked for the county government, all working with veterans. So there's a stark difference between military life and civilian life. And so I can't speak for other veterans, but when I got out of the service, I was frustrated because the tools that I learned in the military, I didn't see like the practical application in everyday civilian life. And so that frustrated me. I'm not saying everybody doesn't hold themselves to a higher standard, but in the military, a good majority of these people, these men and women that have served, it's literally ingrained in your head. In basic training, they break you down to build you back up into what they want you to be. But where I think the federal government fails is that once you're out, you're just out. I mean, whatever your social security number is, that's your identification number in the military. And when you get out of active duty military service, you're supposed to go through this thing called TAPS, Transition Assistance Program and Services. And if you've ever heard of it, it's like death by PowerPoint. That's what it is. So in 2 weeks, they try to inundate you with everything that you're supposed to know and how to act like a civilian. What the hard part is 6 months prior, you're over in Iraq or Afghanistan carrying an M16 or, whatever you're carrying, and you're allowed to, potentially take somebody's life if they try to take yours. And then they're like, well, have a great day. Here's your DD-214. See you on the other side. So
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, that's almost,
Yeah.
And as human beings, we tie ourselves to our identities very strongly. You know what I mean? So you're over in the military, you become that human being. You are that trooper, whatever position you are. That's your identity. That's how you wake up in the morning. You know what your job is. You take care of your orders. You take pride in what you are. And it's almost like when you get dropped back into society, someone wipes all your slate and says, hey, don't be that person. You can't shoot anybody. Don't do this.
Right.
You don't have these orders. Wake up when you feel like it. And even though some people would look at that and be like, well, I have all my freedom back. If you are a creature that operates off structure, which most people are, and now you wipe that structure off the board, you're going to have depression. You're going to have feelings of How do I who am I? How do I rediscover myself? I don't even know that I haven't seen these people in 3 or 4 years. All my brothers or sisters are now spread out across the country or really not close to me. I can't have the life that I had before. That's almost scary when I'm thinking about it right now, because it's like you develop one life and then someone just wipes that life away. And now it's, hey, drop back into society. Thank you for what you've done. And good luck in your next chapter. Like you said, death by PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I really think, and this is just from an outside perspective, that somehow brotherhood or like a community is going to be a key to that success. So I want to go a little bit into the event that you hold called Vet Fest.
Yeah.
You're bringing people, you're bringing the veterans, which I mean, I still can't get over that number you told me, 650,000 in Michigan alone. You're bringing those people together to show them all of the people that are just like them and maybe different ways that they've reintegrated to society, or just create those bonds again. They're like, man, this is a guy that understands what I'm going through. This is a dude that had to make the same transition back, or a man or a woman. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Vet Fest. What gave you the original idea for that? How did you get that thing started?
So in the military, you have something called a battle buddy. So your battle buddy is somebody that you depend on. Because normally if you're going on missions, we would go on missions in Iraq, and we'd go on these long convoys. So you have an A driver, or you're the main driver, and then you have an A driver, which is your assistant driver, which is essentially your battle buddy. It'd be like you and I going to war, and I'm moving forward, you're watching my six, watching my back, vice versa. So you develop a camaraderie in the military through, blood. Really, blood.
It's a life or death
tears.
Bond, really.
It is, and so when you leave the military, 9 times out of 10, your battle buddy's not going to follow you to whatever state you go back to. So you lose that camaraderie. And so for me personally, when I got out of the military in 2008, I had some issues that I just couldn't deal with. And I had mentioned before that I had searched out help, even mental health help, because there were some things I saw overseas that I just couldn't process. And it seems like every door that was cracked open for me was just kicked right in my face. And so I had to learn the hard way that the benefits may be out there, but they're not as easily attainable as they should be. So when my wife and I moved down here in 2011, just by happenstance, I saw there was a posting in the paper for a job at the local county Veterans Affairs office. I'm like, what the hell is a county Veterans Affairs office? So I started doing some research, and I found out that since 1899, there have been county VA offices in Michigan. There's 83 counties in Michigan. Technically, according to the Michigan Constitution, there's supposed to be 83 county Veterans Affairs offices. Coincidentally, I lived down here for a couple of years, and I didn't even know that we had one less than 2 miles from where I was living in an apartment. So I applied for the job, and I was, out of 150 applicants, they chose me. So my job, in a nutshell, was to take the millage money, it was a veterans millage, and create programs with it, emergency assistance programs, or programs that I thought would benefit the local veteran community. So I created a homeless sheltering program for veterans, where we would pay a local hotel. And then what we found is if we can get the veteran in a stable living environment with him and or his family, we could screen them for the benefits. And I'm like, the light bulb went off. All right, so what do we need to do? Not every veteran in Michigan is going to qualify for a benefit, but at the very least, let's screen them for the benefits that they deserve. Now, if you're following here, you have World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War, Desert Storm, OIF, OEF. That's, imagine your grandpa all the way up to you and I, younger veterans. There's a divide among the veteran community because some of the older veterans aren't as technologically savvy. So in order to really effectively approach them, we have to utilize whatever means that works for them. So for the older veteran population, I created this program with, we partner with Meals on Wheels. So Meals on Wheels brings food to people, normally elderly, older people, and we would screen those veterans, and then I would get their names and I would call them. With the younger generation, I mean, my 4-year-old could probably tap into NASA right now, and but I mean, social media is really big right now. So that's difficult to kind of hit all the genres. But to get to where with VetFest, VetFest was really born out of my trials and tribulations of trying to access my own benefits, and really losing that camaraderie. So my wife and I sat down with my friend and his wife, and we said, all right, we're, veterans and spouses of veterans. What do we need to put forth to get as many veterans as we can through the door? Because here's the thing. Outreach events for veterans, it's not a novel idea. But where my idea is novel is that I really take the kind of government bureaucracy approach out of it. I'm not mandating that you go through some PowerPoint or you give me your name and your phone number in order for you to get a ticket to win a t-shirt or a stress ball or something. So what we do in a very non-adversarial way, we said, all right, what do veterans like? Well, we need to get their families involved as well. So what we did is we structured an event that hit all of the, aspects of what every veteran we thought and their families would like. So, free food, free prizes, bands, beer, stuff for the kids. And then, like I mentioned before, in a non-adversarial way, we put the resource providers in the same area. It really goes back to, kind of the credo of, although you may not be entitled to a benefit, at the very least you should be screened to see if you're eligible for any benefits.
What makes someone eligible and somebody not? Because I feel like, again, this is my lack of understanding. Yeah. Looking at it from the outside perspective, you have two people that went into service that did similar things. Obviously, there's a wide variety among the military, but why would someone not receive benefits versus, what makes you not eligible to be taken care of if you've gone through some of the really difficult things that most veterans have?
So really, when you go into the military, you're kind of you're negotiating your own contract. So you say, all right, I was in the military, I was a 12 Charlie, which was a combat engineer. I got a $20,000 bonus, and I was able to, get your duty station, this and that. Some are combat MOSs and some are not combat MOSs. So think about it this way. You got two people. One's a, combat engineer, and one's a 0311 in the Marine Corps, which is infantryman. One gets deployed, one doesn't. One gets blown up, one doesn't. So at just a relative baseline, each military man and woman, when they got out of the service, is eligible as long as they were honorably discharged. As long as they were honorably discharged, they're eligible for a VA home loan benefit, education benefits, which is your post 9/11 GI Bill, or which paid for my law school, VOC rehab. So, like I said, at a baseline, you're eligible for certain benefits. But if you were blown up in Iraq, or if you with PTSD, or any type of disability that was incurred or aggravated when you were on active duty service, you can apply for something called disability compensation. I won't get into that too much, but if, let's say hypothetically, that you were in Iraq and you lost your leg in an IED explosion, the government would, because they can't give you your leg back, they can only compensate you monetarily on a 0 to 100% scale. But here's the underlying issue is that a lot of these vets don't know where to go just to get those basic services. So even if you're entitled to a VA home loan or education benefits or disability or pension or this or that, where do you go? And when I worked at the county, a reoccurring theme, I'd probably get 30 or 40 phone calls a day sometimes. And I'd say, all right, give me a quick rundown of what's going on. And inevitably, every veteran that I spoke to would say, the VA. So you can't do that. It's not the VA. So you have different layers. The federal government has the VHA, which is the hospital. They have the VBA, which is the Benefits Administration, compensation. Then on the state level, you have county Veterans Affairs offices. So to say that it's the VA, that's just too overbroad, and kind of a gray area, as you would say. So VetFest was really born to really educate veterans about the benefits that they're entitled to. So
that's awesome. I mean, that's a service that people need, because there's a certain helplessness to knowing that, like, you know what, I know that there probably are benefits out there, but man, I'm dealing with depression. I'm frustrated. I have this going on. I'm trying to get back to a normal life. I'm trying to be there for my family. If I have my family, I'm trying to rebuild my family. And now all of a sudden I got to jump through all these hoops when I just got done serving the country and I'm now back. I can already understand by having this conversation with you how that would get frustrating and how it might turn a lot of people in, angry or depressed or to just other things. You know what? I'm just going to go out and drink. I'm going to make a little bit of money and whatever. I don't give a shit about that, even though you do. You know what I mean? You absolutely would like assistance and would like it to happen. But I get it. I mean, think about when you have to jump through a hurdle because someone messed up your warranty or like your phone bill is off. How difficult that can be.
Right.
You know what I mean? You have to sit on hold for 2 hours and then you spoke to one person, then you call back the next day to verify, and then that phone conversation can't be traced.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare, man. And I understand how it would be like, oh my God, just forget it. You know what I mean? So your goal, your mission statement is really trying to reach out to all these people that were in a similar situation to you and simplify the process. So if people come to you, it's not that you're guaranteeing that something is there, but you're going to look at exactly them as a person, as their case, and say, hey, this is what you may be entitled for, and it's worth a shot.
Yep.
You did your time, you put your service in, and you deserve a chance at these things. Let me try to simplify the process. In a nutshell, that's what you're doing.
So studies have shown that a military man or woman, a veteran, will search out their benefits 3 times. And if they don't get access to their benefits after the 3rd time, they just essentially quit. They blend back into society. And here's another big issue is that veterans, primarily as a veteran, you're told to just figure it out. Don't ask for help. And in the military, if in civilian life, they say no question is a dumb question. That's not true in the military. Not at all, because you have a rank structure starting from an E1 all the way up to a sergeant major, which is on the non-commissioned officer side, they say. But think about it this way: you're over in Iraq, over in Afghanistan, over in Vietnam, over in Korea, and you can't sit there and ask for help and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, my toe was blew off." Who cares? Move forward. Finish the mission.
In a weird way, the training and the structure and everything is almost counterintuitive to what you need to do when you get back to society. You need to go back to being hey, I need some help. Hey. Come over here. I got a bunch of questions I need to ask you. Yep. Can you hold my hand through this process? You basically just went through an entire system that does the opposite. That makes perfect sense, man. And this is shedding a lot of light on an issue that, something we should talk about is suicides among veterans, because that's something that I'm aware of, but not to any degree. I couldn't give you a number. I can give you the coronavirus statistics right now, but I don't know the actual impact that suicide has on the veteran community, but I know it's very high. You know what I mean? I've heard it. They've been linked for so long. Those words, as scary as this is, they almost go hand in hand, like veteran and suicide. You're not shocked when you read the newspaper if it said, a veteran committed suicide today. It's almost a normal thing.
Yeah.
And that's incredibly discouraging. Do you know the statistics offhand? And why do you think with people dying that serve the country, have we not had extreme policy change and stuff looking at the processes that could help? Because what you and I are discussing right now, I can understand where the depression would come in, the anger would come in, the hopelessness, the why am I not being, I lost a leg in combat and I'm not just able to get benefits to live a semi-normal life when I serve my country. Can anyone listening not hear that and go, you could implode?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So veteran suicide, let's talk a little bit about that. And, second part of that, to turn the question around a little bit, what helped you?
That's a great question. So I'm going to say this number, but I think it's much higher. I think the numbers are skewed. I don't think intentionally, but I think the numbers are a lot higher. So I think the number of veteran suicides per day right now is 22.
Per day?
Per day. And I think that's much higher because the government doesn't take into account is National Guard and reservists that have been activated. Now, from what I remember, for the Iraq and Afghanistan war, 80% of National Guard companies in the country were activated at one point to serve in the conflict.
So at bare minimum, that's the number, and it's already a disturbing number.
Yeah, and I mean, I would venture as to say it's high as about 30%. So I'm not saying that I'm unique, but what worked for me may not work for everybody else. Like I said, when I got out of the military in 2008, I had some things that I just couldn't cope with, I couldn't deal with, and so I turned to alcohol.
I mean, that's a common theme.
It's easily accessible. It's there, and it's always your friend, and it never tells you no. And so what started out for me was, a drink a night, and then it was a couple drinks a night, a couple times a week, and then all of a sudden I woke up and I'm in my front yard in my truck. I ran over my fence, pissed myself. and I look back and I laugh at it now, but I don't remember getting home. And I said to myself, at that time I had 2 children, younger children. And I said to myself, either I'm just going to be another statistic or I got to get my shit together. And
do you remember that moment? Was there like a light switch moment where you really went, it's time to turn this thing around? I'm always fascinated by people that were on an extreme downhill when they turn it around.
Yeah, I woke up crying. I did. I was crying and I was ashamed of myself. And what was really the last straw for me is my youngest daughter, I think she was 2 at the time. I actually left her with my mother just to go out drinking. And I've never been so ashamed of myself in my life. And I just knew I had to get my things together. Fast forward to now, I think what really, truly saved me was my wife. My wife, and I don't know why or how, but she saw something in me and pushed me to go get my bachelor's degree, pushed me to go to law school, and she's pushed me to just be a better person, I would say.
She's almost been your battle buddy.
She has, yeah. And it's funny you mention that because what I was lacking when I left the military, I think that she saw or she fit those pieces that I needed of that puzzle that I needed to put back together. So,
wow, that's a powerful story right there. I love those moments in life where, because everybody's had bad times. Everybody's done things that they regret, but I love those moments where somehow someone hits, that's the rock bottom, I guess, for you. You truly were at the bottom where you go, hey, I'm going to be another statistic, or I'm going to turn this thing around. So you can truly empathize with these veterans that are struggling, and you know what it's like to just, take a route like alcohol and say, I'm going to run this thing to the end. And that's with a family at home. And that's because from the outside perspective, like, oh, you got your family, you got young kids at home, you have this, you're back in society, you have your freedom. Why are you not happy? You had to make that adjustment to go like, life is worth living again. Mm-hmm. It's worth going on. I have a future. And then now you sit before me today with a degree in law, and you run a nonprofit, and you spend your life trying to help other people that were in a situation similar to you, and in a lot of ways, I'm the same. I mean, martial arts saved my life, as cliche as that sounds. Like, I was very depressed, suicidal, without going into a lot of my story. And martial arts gave me this tiny window a day where for this couple hour period, my brain wasn't collapsing. The outside world wasn't ripping me apart. Like, for this quick moment while someone was trying to strangle me, I wasn't thinking about everything else. You know what I mean? I got to just be in the moment, and then it started giving me hope that maybe life can be a little bit better. And now I want to give that same to others. So in many ways, we're very similar.
Yeah, I loved your story. And I know, people are just listening to this, but give you a little background. When I moved down here, I wanted to get into mixed martial arts. And I went to one place in Brighton that just didn't seem like a family type environment to me. And so I was looking around, and I can't remember who. I think you used to work at Champion Chevrolet.
I did.
Yeah, and somebody said, hey, you got to link up with James. He's got doing jiu-jitsu. And so it was like the first time I met you. I could tell that you and I were somewhat of kindred spirits in the sense that, you can see that hunger in somebody's eyes. And I don't really know where you grew up or your life growing up, but I mentioned before that, I grew up on this little Indian reservation in the Upper Peninsula, and for the first 4 or 5 years of my life, it was me, my dad, my mom, and my grandmother in I would call it a 1.5 bedroom trailer. No running water for the first couple of years. So I used to have to sleep in my grandma's bed, and she would chain smoke, and we'd watch Lonesome Dove every damn night. And I'm like, oh, I hate this.
No, that's a story.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't do this. And so back in the 80s and even the 90s, where I went to school, it was primarily white. And although I may not look native, people knew that you were from the res, they would say. So I think the stigma's changed a little bit now, but back where I grew up, if you were Native American, you weren't treated very well. They say, all right, you're a drunk Indian, or, you're just going to be an alcoholic, you're going to, be a loser. And so for the better part of my childhood, when that's rammed down your throat every day that you're never going to amount to anything in your life, that's a tough pill to swallow. So I remember thinking to myself, I got to get out of here. I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know when, but I just got to get out of here. And so I think that that's why I joined the military, and I think that that's why we moved down here, because it was kind of like an FU in the face of all the people that said that I was never going to amount to anything in my life. So
a lot of times they say a chip on the shoulder is a really powerful thing. You know what I mean? When you grow up and you have all these people telling you what you're going to be, what you're going to do, what your expectations, what their expectations of you are. It's a powerful thing. You know what I mean? That chip on your shoulder is almost fuel constantly. Yeah. You know what I mean? I've heard motivational speakers say, never lose the chip on your shoulder, because when life tells you you can't be something, you know what I mean? You can go out and prove it wrong. So you had that fuel. You said, hey, I'm going to do this. And you had told me before the podcast you went to go to the college route, and then it didn't work out, and then you went, military, and then which actually turned you back around to your education. Yeah. It almost like helped you. Once you went through your ups and your downs, you discovered who you really were. You kind of probably let go a lot of the past of what you thought you were. You knew you were something different. You went through the military. You separated yourselves. You learned to be a part of a team. You developed your character. You came back and you took charge. Did you meet Courtney right when you got back from the military? Was there a long period after? Because I feel like she was definitely a pivotal role in this story. I could see it in your eyes when you were telling me it, that she was a crucial element to making that transition. You know what I mean? It's almost like like I said, it's as adorable as it is to say that you found your battle buddy as a civilian. When did that take place?
So I think I met my wife, and and she's gonna
grill you if you're off, I tell you.
Home. So we've been married for 10 years, but we've been together for 16, I think. So whatever minus 2020 that is, 2006, I think. Yeah. So I had been married previously, and then I went through a divorce, and so essentially I was a single father. Been raising my my middle daughter.
And you're out of the military at this point, or are you still in?
Yeah, I was in the National Guard, so we were doing drilling every month, and so I'm an avid golfer, and so two of my brothers are police officers up in the UP, and one of them couldn't golf in this Crime Stoppers golf scramble, and so my wife was working at a golf course, and asked her out on a date. Unfortunately for her, she said no, So no, but that's when Facebook first came around. So I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but Facebook used to have a university email, college email, even to get a Facebook.
Yep.
And I had failed out of college, but I still had my college email.
Still got that email, that golden ticket.
Yeah. And so I messaged her, and finally she said, yeah, I'll go on it was a day date too, I'm like, oh, that's kind of a kick in the face.
Persistence, my friends. Anybody listening, persistence.
Yes. And I completely went up in the chain. I think I'm maybe like a hard 6, and she's easily a 10. So, yeah. Courtney, if you're listening.
See how he spun that conversation around? Yeah. That's good husband skills right there. Started it off a little shaky, spun the conversation around, no problem at all. Let's look forward a little bit. I mean, 2020 has been a wild year. Yeah, it's been an incredibly difficult year for a lot of people in a lot of different avenues. How has 2020 affected you before we skip forward? How has 2020 affected your ability to do your business, or have you been able to maintain your outreach in the community, your effect on the veterans? You know, I know VetFest got canceled, or at least got delayed. Yep. So let's speak a little bit about that. And then moving forward, after we talk about like the current state of affairs, what are your goals in like the next 6 months, the next year? Like what does VetFest evolve into? What does your nonprofit evolve into? How do we keep this thing growing so that the statistics start to actually be impacted in the right direction?
Yeah, perfect. I appreciate that question. So to give you a little background, I worked for the county VA office, I think, for 5 years. And then I believe in 2016, I applied for a job with the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency, which is supposed to be the state agency that helps all veterans in Michigan. I thought, all right, I did everything I could at a county level. I created all these programs. The natural progression is to just move up in the ladder. Now, unfortunately, things weren't progressing at the speed that I wanted them to progress at. So right before COVID hit, my wife and I had sat down and we just made a decision that I was going to quit my job with the state and really start focusing on the nonprofit. We had taken in a pretty sizable donation to help fund us through the next 12 to 18 months. And then unfortunately, the state agency cut our program.
Whoa, wait a second. They cut the program.
Yeah. Mid-pandemic, I wake up one day.
I mean, veterans would be one of the people, in my opinion, they're going to be hit hardest in this. You're talking about people that are going to need structure. Yeah. The whole world gets flipped upside down. I mean, I was a mess for a couple. I'm going, what in the world is going? So mid-pandemic, when it's probably the most important time to watch mental health, to watch suicide, to watch people that need somebody to be there for them, your program gets cut.
Yeah, so I wake up one morning and I get this email. So my job, it was a contracted job, so it wasn't technically a state employee, but I was employed by the state of Michigan. I get an email saying, hey, unfortunately, we're going to have to cut your family's health care in the first month of the pandemic. And I'm like, holy man, I'll be okay because I got VA health care. My kids will be okay because they have what's called IHS, Indian Health Services, because they're tribal members. But my wife, she wouldn't have any health care. And then a month later, we get another email now from the director of the agency, the state agency, and she said, unfortunately, we have to cut this program. Now, mind you, this is 2 months into the pandemic, like you were saying.
A global health pandemic. I mean, let's talk about we're about to cut health care. Yeah. You're a state employee that is working to help the people, the constituency of Michigan, veterans that serve the country to fight for the things that this country stands for. It gets cut in a global pandemic that is related to health. They're going to put your family at risk.
Yeah.
What did that feel like?
I'll tell you, it was really a kick in the face because, to give you a little background, the program that I worked for was called the Regional Coordinator Program. So essentially what that is, Michigan is broken up into what's called prosperity regions based upon veteran population. So there's 10 prosperity regions in Michigan. So Region 1, which is the entire UP, I don't know how many veterans, there may be 30, 40,000, I don't know right offhand. But compare that with Region 10, which is just 3 counties, Wayne, Oakland, and Macomb, which makes up 1/3 of the veteran population. Now, you had what's called regional coordinators that were supposed to engage these veterans at a local level where they can be most successful in, coordinating the benefits together. So the amount of success that I had in the regional coordinator program, I never would have thought that program could have been cut. And I had the data to back it up. I showed that we were engaging veterans. So how we were measuring that success is the amount of veterans that we were, pushing towards the available resources in the area.
Yeah, 100%. That shows you're making an impact. Remember, we talked earlier about the podcast. They try 3 times.
Yep.
And they give up. You're showing that you're the 4th time. You're the time that they're, you know what, we're breaking through. Maybe we can get these people help before, a final result. So things are going good. You're having a great impact.
Yep.
Because in a job like that, I feel like there has to be, as a state employee, there needs to be extreme accountability because some people might just take that job and, you know what, I'm trying my best. The veterans aren't, doing their part back. You're passionate about it.
Yeah.
I've known you for, probably over a decade now. You're passionate about it. It means something to you. So you're killing it. You're really dedicating to this program. You're making sure that, when you look at the numbers, you go, listen, without a doubt, they know that I'm important because I'm helping people.
Yeah.
You get cut.
Well, here's something that really floored me. About 2 weeks before we found out the actual program was going to be cut, I put something on my LinkedIn. I said, to any veterans, if you're going through a struggle, reach out to me. I don't care. Here's my cell phone number. Here's my email. I don't care. Wherever you're at in Michigan, just let me know. And so I received an email or a LinkedIn message, I think, from a veteran, and he said, I really just want somebody to talk to. I said, all right, do you want to go get a cup of coffee? You want to go for a walk? And, at that time with pandemic, it was kind of difficult. I don't even know if coffee shops were even open then. And he said, no, I just want to go for a walk. So what I was thinking, maybe, a 10, 15-minute walk really turned into about an hour and a half walk. And we really just shot the shit. Everything from his military service to how difficult it was transitioning out back into the civilian world. And what was crazy is that everything that he had went through, I had went through. I mean, if you just put us both on the same path, really the only difference between him and I was that I found the benefits that I was supposed to find, and he didn't. And so at the end of it, we're just sitting on a bench, I think, and he's like, I was going to take my life today. And it really floored me to think that a complete stranger has an effect like that on somebody's life, and then 2 weeks later, that program's cut. How many other veterans are out there right now that needed this program, but now it's no longer there? And that's what drives me. That's what keeps me moving forward with Vetlife, with trying to make sure that these guys know that I'll never give up on them.
So now you're no longer a state employee, right? Vetlife is, or am I incorrect? It's separate from the state, so you can't just be shut down by the state like that again, or are you directly, because of the world that you're forced to be in, you have a certain chain of command that they can just cancel again? How does Vetlife work? Because, that's incredibly frightening. Yeah. You just told one story out of what would be, there's hundreds of thousands of versions of that story where someone just needed somebody to talk to. Think about how many times people just after speaking to a therapist once, or they get a call from an old friend the day before they thought they were going to take their lives. We hear these stories throughout society. People need people. People need people sometimes to be able to get over that, they're standing on the edge of a cliff and they don't know, do I go forward? Do I turn around and try to figure out what's this way? You know what I mean? Sometimes it's as weird as this is, if you haven't experienced extreme depression and things like that, you almost just want everything to end. Yeah. And that there's a peace in that. And people don't understand that unless you ever get to that point where you're truly very helpless and hopeless and broken emotionally, but you just want it to stop. And sometimes just somebody hearing you out and caring, that's what it is. What it really comes down to is there's another human being that can empathize with what you're going through and cares about you. They can turn this thing around, man. So now you have Vetlife. Yep. It's not under the state.
No, so I was told my wife this. I said, you know what? We're going to be our own, we're going to make our own destiny someday. Nobody's going to tell us what to do. Nobody's going to cut our program just because they can. And so when we started Vetlife, I wanted to be very careful with who I aligned myself with for donors. And I had met with this gentleman. His name's AJ Francie. He owns a Gold Star Mortgage branch near Ann Arbor. And I'll tell you why it's so important, why I aligned myself with him. Not just because he saw the vision. I don't know, maybe he saw something in me. But when you get out of the military, unfortunately, a lot of businesses want to prey on veterans because they think they're easy benefits. Now, here's an example. VA home loans. A lot of predatory lenders out there trying to take advantage of veterans because they know they can make a bunch of money on the back end off of a veteran, and they'll never know because it gets rolled into a home loan. So when I met with AJ, I said, listen, man, one of my ideas to really be all-encompassing, so you have the VetFest concept, but what I also want to do is run an education campaign. So I started creating these tutorial videos. They're 30 to 60 seconds. The first one came out about 3 months ago, and it was how to obtain a VA home loan. I'm actually shooting the next video with AJ and his team on Thursday, and it's how to access benefits at a local level. Now, my goal is to get these videos in every county VA office. I'm working with the Detroit Lions. I want to work with the Tigers. I want to work with the Red Wings. I want to work with the, all the sports teams. I want to work with the Secretary of State, places where veterans are going to be. And I want to get these videos played, and then we drive the veteran to our website and give them all of the necessary tools that they need.
So you're leveraging, social media is everything now. Everybody can communicate instantly. And although social media can be kind of a plague, it's an incredible tool if it's used correctly.
Yeah.
So, Facebook I've used successfully for years because I realized it's such an ability to reach out to a large community of people. So as long as you have a good vision, good passion, things like that, it's a phenomenal tool.
Yeah.
You can use it all day to, just sit around and complain and hate the world or stare at videos of cute animals, but it's a tool. Mm-hmm. It's a tool to connect people. And we're more connected than we've ever been in any point of life. So now all of a sudden you're also making it simple for time.
Yep.
When you were saying you were making videos, I'm thinking like, man, well, what if they're not going to sit through a 30 to 60 minute?
Right.
I was thinking, you're just like, you know what? I'm going to take the flat out A, B, C, D, E.
Yeah.
If you don't understand this, simply contact me right here. I will personally help you out with this, and you're going to be all set. It makes it simple.
Yep.
It simplifies the difficult process. That would give, when we wind the clock back earlier to this conversation, when I was thinking about all the, I got to figure this out, I got to solve this, I was trying to put myself into a human being's shoes that's experiencing that. Wait a second, I got this quick video and this simple route that I can follow this, and I know that this guy is a champion of the cause that's going to help me get these results. That's huge, man. That's huge.
So when I started working for the state, I had these grandiose ideas, and if you've ever worked in government, you know that government really doesn't like grandiose ideas. So one of the ideas that I had approached the state was this concept called veteran-friendly communities. Because here's the thing. When a veteran transitions out into civilian world, they lose that camaraderie. Where we could really make a difference as a community is really bridging that educational gap between, veterans and civilians. Because really there is a distinct line between, you served or you didn't serve. Doesn't make you better, doesn't make you worse. Just means that you went through different type of, scenarios, or, once you've been in combat, once you've been shot at or blown up, it's hard to go back to where you were. Things just
click easier. If you're a martial artist, you click with other martial artists easier. If you're a police officer, the thin blue line, you connect with other officers easily. There's there's just certain easy ways to connect. It's like a part of a tribe.
Yeah.
We're very tribal. Hey, you were like me to some degree. There's a level of trust there initially.
Well, my goal is with these veteran-friendly communities is to really leverage local partnerships. Because I think that if you can leverage local partnerships and also educate those local partnerships on the benefits of even hiring a military veteran. Because you have a background, you can pay attention, you can take orders, you're going to show up for work, you're going to do your job, you're not going to complain for the most part. And veterans are model employees for the most part. And so what I've been trying to do with Livingston County, really with Vetlife in general, my nonprofit, I want Vetlife to be a one-stop shop. I don't want you to have to go to 7 different places to try to get 7 different types of benefits.
Oh, that's good to hear, and I'm not even in that fight.
Yeah, I just want you to come to us, vetlifetoday.org, and we'll take care of you. I'll never let you go without, your benefits. Give you a quick story. Although I no longer work for the state, my personal cell's still out there, and right before I pulled into your parking lot, get a call from a Vietnam veteran that needs a bed. We got that bed taken care of within an hour. A bed's going to be delivered tomorrow. Think about it this way. If I would have had to go through the necessary or proper channels, we're looking at a month. You got to fill out this arbitrary application. You got to give me 60 days of bank statements.
Could that guy even believe that? After that process, it must have been like, wait, what?
Who
Tomorrow?
Are you? What do you mean?
Yeah. Is this a setup? I'm not meeting you there.
Right? Yeah.
Wow, that's wild, man.
Yeah.
So one thing that I want to ask about is because this program gets cut during the pandemic, So you got veterans that just get trashed over this. You know what I mean? It's a terrible thing that takes place. You don't hear about it in the media. I didn't hear anything about that until you told me that today. I would have had no idea. I would have thought everybody's struggling the exact same, but not much has changed. We're all just kind of struggling.
Yeah.
There was a massive cut for veterans. And this is difficult because you always tiptoe around politics, but I'm going to just ask it this way. Do you believe that there's a certain political affiliation that is naturally pushing more towards the things that we've discussed today, trying to make it easier on veterans? Are both sides kind of battling, some for and some against? Here's what I'm trying to say without just openly saying it. Is a vote for one party damaging to these veterans' futures? Or is it really just like both parties don't really know how to solve the problem and it's just a complex situation? You understand the inner workings way more than me.
Yeah.
If this was a Republican-controlled state, does this program get cut? Was it because it's Democrat? Is it not political at all? And if so, then why the cut? It's one of the most crucial things is to protect human life. Are we not following all these protocols right now with masks and all these things for our health and to survive? Well, I'm telling you right now, if you cut a program that has a suicide rate of over 20 some a day, how can you say you care about human life? That doesn't make sense.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think it's a political question per se. I think really what it comes down to, I think this was really a perfect storm. What happened with veterans and for me this is completely backwards, because if you look at it this way, really it's about money is really what it is. But what people don't seem to understand is, we'll take Livingston County because we're here right now. If the more veterans that you have coming through your door to apply for benefits, that's money coming back into your community. So when I speak to the county commissioners of Livingston County, this is my pitch to them to really ramp up their veteran service provision. I say, all right, think about it this way. In 2019, you had 800 veterans come through your door. That brought in $11 million in benefits. So, disability compensation, I told you. Let's say that you're a veteran and you...
Real quick, do these benefits come from the state level or do they come from the federal government?
No, here's the beauty of it. It comes from the federal government. So
I can understand this argument now in 3 seconds. The second I understood that, why wouldn't it be an absolute top priority to get every single veteran the benefits they deserve? Not because it is not only just, it is good for that human being's life. It is good to do that as a community. What if that was your father, your friend, your brother, someone you care about? You would do it anyway. But if you just looked at it from a money standpoint, which is where we started this conversation, why wouldn't you do it? Just because where are those people going to spend their money? In their community.
Yep.
Wow.
That's people buying houses. I can tell you, the subdivision I live in right now, I was able to get at least 5 of those veterans that live in my sub the VA home loans that they needed. That's veterans that are paying property taxes in Livingston County. That drives up the prices of the houses. It brings back, like you said, money into the local community. More importantly, though, what it does is, well, this isn't more importantly, but this is more of a benefit to getting these guys these benefits is, if they're on any type of state public assistance, whether WIC or Medicaid or food or assistance, that is freeing up that money from the state. There's your budget right there.
Instead of cutting the program, do a better job. You're bringing more money into people that need it. You're helping their life could be on the line.
Yeah.
You're helping them, and it is literally helping your budget directly instead of just going, cut the program. I want to know who the person is or the council is that looks at that during a pandemic where I'm just going to say it anyway. You're telling us you care about us so much, and that's why we have to take all these precautions.
Right.
And I mean, everybody just cares about me so much now. Before I could, drink myself to death, nobody cared. I could take, opiates or whatever I want and die, and there was epidemic, nobody cared. But now the government really wants me to make sure I stay 6 feet away from you because they care about me. Well, that being said, then none of this adds up. If you really cared about me, we have a program that could put more money in your state, put more money in your local communities, generate more tax revenue, generate all of these things, right? But you cut that while saying you care about people? That doesn't add up, man. There's just a mess there. And I'm sure it's a difficult thing to look at a massive budget and say, hey, where do we cut? What do we do? But now, sitting here with you today, I am incredibly happy to hear that Vetlife is its own organization that can't be shut down like that is going to continue doing this work regardless. Pandemic, no pandemic. Republican leader, Democratic leader. You're going to continue to try to help people.
So I, with my time with the state and the county government, the federal government, so I took all the things that I thought were broken, and I made a list, like the top 3 or 4 things that I really wanted to change myself and not have to go through these different levels of bureaucracy. Now, we have the nonprofit, but we also have our company. It's called MVR. It's called My Veteran Records. And why I think this is important, it kind of goes into this one-shop-stop mentality that I'm trying to create. So essentially what MVR does is it digitizes military medical records and discharge papers, and it puts it in a cloud-based storage, and that works with the counties in Michigan. So here's a real-life situation. You're a veteran. You want to get disability compensation. You go to your local VA office, and they say, all right, and you have to prove, that you were blown up or this or that. And the only way you can do that is through your military records.
Now you have a platform. It's right online. Your company shoots it over to the people. It's verified. It's done.
Sometimes it's taken 3 to 6 months to get these records. And then that goes into that whole veteran asking for help 3 times. Here's one of the stories that just makes my blood boil, and real quick. So I had a vet about 2 years ago call me, and he said, hey, I applied for disability compensation almost 2 years ago. I haven't heard anything back. So because of my channels, I start trying to figure out what the heck's going on. Well, come to find out, this veteran was like a hybrid. So he spent half his time on active duty service, meaning, regular Army, and then half of his time in the National Guard, which is a federal branch and a state branch. And they just don't talk. So what had happened was when he was filing for disability, the VBA, like I mentioned before, which is the federal government, the Veterans Benefits Administration, takes in and requests all those military records. So the VBA has access to the federal records, but on National Guard, which is state, they have to actually physically request those from the National Guard Bureau. Well, what was happening is the federal government had sent over 13 separate requests for those records, and it was going to a building that no longer existed. And so this guy's records the request was never even getting through. Here's what I did. I went to the lady that oversaw the program. I said, all right, here's the veterans information. Burn this on a disc, give it to me. I'm going to drive it to Detroit, from Lansing to Detroit, and we're going to get this guy his benefits. She's like, okay. So she did, gave it to me. The guy, after almost 2 years, his claim was decided within 3 days. He got back pay of almost $50,000.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
That's an unbelievable story. Is that an older gentleman?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you right now, being my generation, if we don't hear back in, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, we're freaking out. We're going, what is the holdup? Because we're used to everything being like this. Yeah. That poor gentleman sat around for 2 years before reaching out and saying, like, listen, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. You helped him. It's just simple, innovative thinking. Yeah. You didn't restructure or, create something that was unheard of. You were like, oh, one record's here and one record's here.
How do we get that record?
We need to get them together. Okay, I'll be right there. Yeah. Man, so you're basically just taking an incredibly complex system that is not good at its infrastructure. It has a lot of breakdowns. There's a lot of channels that just don't connect. And you're just repairing these channels, and you're making it simpler for people that need it.
Well, I think another issue is, you really have a culture of, military veterans that don't want to ask for help in the first place, but then swallow their pride and ask for the help. And then the person on the other end of the line is, oh, I've dealt with 30 of you today. I've heard that before. I've dealt with 30 of you today. What do you want?
They get broken down. Yeah. They're like, oh, I got to go through the process again because
makes me feel like a piece of shit.
Yeah. And I see how that could come off the other end. I can understand sitting in the shoes of someone that's trying to do it every day. Mm-hmm. You're fighting a broken system. Yeah. It's a constant, but you've put 13 requests in and you go like, man, what more do you want me to do? Yep. You need almost somebody on the outside that's not directly under the state or not in a program that has all these boundaries. You said, put that on a disc, watch this.
Yep.
I'm that type of thinker. I'm the type of person that if you give me a problem and you tell me I have to solve it one way, I don't do very well. But if you just give me a problem and I have to come up with a solution, like I'll solve it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You might not like the way I solve, but I will solve that problem. You're solving problems. Man, Josh, this has been stellar. Tell me, in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, what does your program look like if we get people get to hear this, see this, witness the passion for what you're doing way beyond what you currently have? If you're given the platform and the, resources across the board to truly, maybe even go federal at one point, why even stay just in the state of Michigan? If you got big enough and successful enough, why couldn't this be a federal operation where across the nation you're like, please come to me and my team and we are going to help you.
Yeah.
Believe that there's hope. Contact us. We're going to help you turn this thing around. What do your goals look like?
So, I mentioned in 2018, our first Vet Fest, we had over 1,800 people show up. And then 2019, we had over 3,000 people show up. After that, I went on the Frank Beckman show and I did an interview. And almost immediately, I get a call from this gentleman that organizes the Detroit Veterans Day Parade. And he said, hey, we really want to take your Vet Fest concept and we'd like for you to bring it to Detroit. So the mayor of Detroit's office reached out to me, said, hey, we got a platform, why don't you come in and speak to us? Because we think if, you can get this accomplished in the city of Detroit, you could take this anywhere in the country. So our goal with Vet Fest is to hold these events quarterly in Michigan, starting out. And so this goes back to, there's something called a GDX report. It's very kind of arbitrary, but it's the only way that the federal government can really see how their dollars are being allocated. So Michigan has the 11th highest veteran population, but we're in the bottom 5 of benefits we provide to veterans. So my goal is to take those bottom 5 states and take the Vet Fest concept to those states, and then we can show that. Here's the thing. If we can show the natural correlation between our Vet Fest events and getting the veteran to their resources, which right now the only way we can determine if they've been helped is the amount of money that the federal government has allocated to that specific state. So for 2021, what we're going to do is we're going to have our Vet Fest event in Livingston County in August. We'll have a Vet Fest event in November in the city of Detroit. But we're also going to add 2 more. So we're going to do one in the UP, probably in the spring, and then one in midsummer in Grand Rapids. So we'll have those quarterly events, and then what we'll do is we'll move over to the next bottom state. And then according to the next GDX report, we're going to show that even if we can bump that, I'm told, even if we can bump that number up by like 5%, apparently we've, created, a huge solution.
You're a savior among veterans
for 5%. I mean, that's crazy.
No, it makes sense
I'm
to me.
thinking like 90%.
No, you got to think about quantity though.
Yeah.
5% on a scale that big is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Especially when, at the beginning of this conversation, you said 15% of 650,000 people. I mean, that's only 100,000 people.
Yeah.
That means over 500,000 are not getting benefits. That's unbelievable. So, man, I'm telling you what, I've known that you've been passionate about this for years. I know you back this cause. I've always tried to, in any way you say, hey, James, can I help you with this? Man, all of the power of the Michigan Institute of Athletics and our outreach and our fighters. We got a fighter fighting for a world title next month. We got a guy for a UFC contract on Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm excited.
We've got Michel Pereira flying from Brazil up here again. He fights September 5th. Man, I'm going to leverage all of our outreach to make sure that people know about this because it's just awesome. Like I've known that you've done a great thing for a while, and I've always tried to support in any way I can. But sitting here with you today and having this dialogue and seeing the challenge that you're up against, man, just any way we can back you 1,000%. So, last thing I want to get on the podcast, if anybody wants to reach out to you, they want to contact you, they want to find out if they can be involved in assisting this battle that you're on. How do they do that? What is the best route for them to reach you? Do you have an office here in the community? Should they reach to you directly? Is it through a team? What's the best avenue?
Yeah, so we have a team set up. So the best way to reach us is through Facebook, search Vetlife, or go to www.vetlifetoday.org and send a message, and myself or one of our team members will reach out to you, normally within the hour, but if we get swamped, give us 24 hours. But, we're going to contact you. So
there's a peace of mind in knowing that you guys are going to get a follow-up. And I'm going to make sure that there's links to both of those at the bottom of this video. So if you're watching on YouTube or if you're watching on SoundCloud, you can write those down, or we'll have a link right below this video that you can just simply click.
Yeah. And then lastly, real quick, so we're doing I mentioned before that VetFest in August, we had to postpone that, but November's still a go. We're looking at, how to socially distance and, our safety preparedness plan, but we're a go for that. But what we're doing to kind of recoup the VetFest is we're doing these smaller events. So at the end of August in Brighton, we're doing a cornhole tournament. It's a fundraiser. And then in October, we're actually working with a couple of the Detroit Lions players, retired players, to do a kids football camp for veterans, specific to veteran kids. All of our events are free, except for the cornhole tournament, which is a fundraiser. But, every dime we take in goes back into these events. So, search Battle of the Bags on Facebook if you want to put a cornhole team in.
Battle of the Bags. We need to get the two best competitors here. We're competitive in everything we do. I mean, it doesn't matter if we're going to watch paint dry. We're going to stare at it more than the other opponent. We're just competitive people here. So talk amongst your friends here. Who's the best for Battle of the Bags? We're putting a team.
Yeah, good. Love to have you.
So, man, just stellar conversation today. 66 minutes on the podcast like it was nothing.
Yeah, I felt like about 10. I was looking at my watch.
Yeah, no, just absolutely stellar, man. So I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope that people, I hope this brings more awareness. Anyone that's a military, veteran or is considering military in the future or has a military family, you guys have strong networks among other military people. Take the time to either share this video, spread this message, put the information for them to contact Josh, or just know in the back of your mind, make a catalog so that the next time you hear a veteran talking about the struggle that they're having or that needs someone to reach out to, think of Josh first. Think of VetLife. Think about things can be done. There's still hope, and we can turn this thing around. So, Josh, man, I appreciated this so much. This was the Gray Area podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. And, thank you for being here with me today.
Yep, it was a pleasure. Thanks.